Hi everyone, I'm Kayla, head of creator here on Minecraft. I'm joined with...
I'm Mike Amerlin. I'm a product manager on Kayla's team. I work on a lot of the documentation and learning portal updates and the like.
My name is Bryant Hawthorne. I am a product manager also on Kayla's team, focusing on tools, specifically editor.
And we are here with another release update. So it's time for 1.21.80, and that means it is time for all new creator features that we want to go over with you. So let's start with some scripting updates. So scripting is now 1.19.0, which means there's a few new APIs you get to play with. The first is the dimension.placeFeature API. You have that place feature command, and now you can use the API equivalent in scripting to do the same cool stuff. The next one is world.getDifficulty and world.setDifficulty. This allows you to both set and get the difficulty of players in their world. Mike, that seems pretty obvious. Can you tell us a bit more about that API?
Yeah, well, once upon a time I was a product manager for the scripting APIs in Minecraft, but it didn't occur to me until like 19 versions in that maybe we should have a way to get the difficulty of the ambient world so you can adjust your gameplay experience based on difficulty. It's a little esoteric, but I'm glad we finally got it in.
Was it difficult to get that one in?
Apparently, very, very difficult.
Well, better late than never, so glad to see him here in this release. The next one is dimension.placeJigsaw and dimension.placeJigsawStructure. These are going to be really limited APIs in scripting for the time being while we work on our larger Jigsaw features in the background. So, for now, they're only going to work on the trial chambers and trial ruins structures, but you can look forward to these APIs getting a lot more powerful in the future. Next, we have a whole bunch of block improvements. Minecraft and blocks, they go together like peanut butter and jelly. And here we have a few cool new capabilities. First is destruction particles. So when you break a block, there's some visuals that come out of a block, and this allows you to customize that and change it visually. The next is per biome block tinting. So some blocks actually change the way they look when they move between biomes, and this gives you creators some capability to play with this setting as well. And the last one's a little bit complicated to understand. It's called isotropic blocks. Really, it's all about how do you make blocks look a bit different as you kind of place them. Grass blocks are a really great example when you place grass blocks that kind of have a randomizing pattern. So isotropic blocks is really all about changing the UV of blocks. So like I said, it's pretty difficult to kind of understand that one.
You know, a good way to remember, this is how I remember it anyway, is when you go to the isotropics, you want to bring your shades to protect yourself from the UVs.
Yeah, that is totally a good way to remember it because I'm always like, what's isotropic blocks? Yeah. And now UVs. I will never forget.
The UVs.
Maybe we can show a demo.
Yeah, let's go show a demo of these isotropic blocks and hopefully a tropic setting. Okay, all right, so we're going to get started with our good friend tool Blockbench. All right, so let me go drag this over here. And what we're going to do is we are going to use the block wizard, which you can add as a plugin, and we are going to create a new block. And I'm just going to call this the bush block. We're going to introduce a custom bush into Minecraft, I guess. We're going to use the glowstone to actually get started with this. This is a number of different templates you can use. And I'm just going to go accept all the default settings, etc. And I'm just going to call this bush. And I'm going to go export this to the Minecraft folder like so. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Blockbench makes it super easy to go get started with this. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to go jump into my Minecraft folder. So sing it with me. Local state games com.mojang. I'm not a very good singer. Development behavior packs and the like. And you can see, voila, there's this new bush folder here, which has our behavior pack. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit the JSON definition for our bush to go make it both isotropic as well as have some of the new tint methods, yes, exactly, that are available for it. So we're going to jump down to our material instances element right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go change not the tint method, the tint method. And I'm going to specify dry underscore foliage. We're going to make this a dry bush that will look like it's dried out. And then I'm also just going to set isotropic to true like that. Let's see. Yes, exactly. the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go update the version to 1.21. Oh, 80. We're on 1.21.80. Still living in a 1.21.70 world in my mind. Anyway, but yeah, so this is dry foliage. Oh yeah, actually you need to customize the block and make it look a certain way. So to take advantage of the biome tinting, what you're going to want to do is actually go into your UVs and probably make them grayscale. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to adjust the saturation so it's completely desaturated, basically grayscale. I'm going to go poke some holes in this just to make it look a little bit more bush-like, I guess. So I'm just going to go poke some holes in this and just make it a little bit see-through. So it's like a bush. You can kind of see through it maybe, and the like. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ruin it a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a couple of little happy numbers on here just so that we can track, you know, like I'm going to put like an arrow on here so you can kind of track like, okay, this is the arrow that this UV is facing, so we can track it from there. Okay, so now we've got our, well, spray painted bush that's now available to us, and let's go just try this out inside of Minecraft. So I'm going to go pop Minecraft up like this. I'll go create a new world and the like, and we'll get started. Let's see. All right, so I'll hit play, and we're going to create a new world like so, create a new world, and I'm going to say bush test like this. We're going to make it creative. We're going to go into cheats. One thing I guess that's changed a little bit is you're always going to have to explicitly turn on cheats if you want to give yourself commands to go test this thing. Oh, no, I don't want to remove it. All right, so we got our bush, behavior pack and resource pack, and I think everything looks good. So we're ready to go. All right, and we're going to go create that world. It'll go load it up, and hopefully we can give ourselves a bush that we can go place inside of the world and see how this works. All right. So it's cooking, loading. Mobs won't notice you in creative mode, but they'll still notice each other. That's definitely true. Yeah. All right. So let's go give ourselves the bush block. All right. So my name, bush. And you can see that when I place this down here, well, two things. First, you can see that it's now has this kind of brown hue, which is because it's dry foliage and it's getting tinted by the biome that it's in. But you can also see that as I place it, the arrow actually places random directions. And this is just a good way to, you know, shake things up a little bit. If you've got something that's got this very variable texture like this bush, you know, you can see how you get like, you know, 4 or 5 for the price of one block. You get these different variants that are rotated in different directions to basically implement the concept of, you know, a very variable type of bush. So that's a little bit about tint method and the like. Maybe if I put the bush in here, it might be a slightly different hue. Yeah, let's say that's different. Yeah, sure. But yeah, that's the general idea behind the tint method and the isotropic setting that you now have available in 1.21.80 for blocks. All right, so let's go back over to the PowerPoint slides.
All right. So that was blocks. So next we have a bunch of entity improvements. First is to writable components, and the second is to leashable components. So as you know, with the summer drop coming, there's a lot of cool stuff with the Happy Ghast and giving players a new ability to leash things and ride things in different ways. This kind of surfaces those components to creators so you can leverage a lot of this stuff yourself. Writables are really, really powerful and really important to a lot of different types of experiences that creators make. And so, while this might look a little bit technical right here, there's a lot of really good stuff in here for creators.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of the experiences that we see, when you think about rideable, you think about like maybe riding a horse and those kinds of things. But frequently, it's also used to implement vehicles that you might see in your favorite marketplace maps, you know, cars and those kinds of things, or maps that are out there in the world. The other thing is sometimes it's used for non-conventional things. Like you can actually... I've seen people implement the concept of a bed where if you want to sleep in the bed, you are technically riding the bed, the bed being an entity that, you know, is a very slow moving horse essentially in that case. But having these events for when a player decides to go ride that thing or exit riding that thing actually is very huge. You can run commands. You can do a lot of interesting things based on the behavior of somebody getting onto or getting off of something. So that's a really huge set of events that people can now work with in 1.21.80.
I also like the kind of convenience factor of the camera features that are built into the writable component here as well. It kind of gives you a couple of easy parameters that you can kind of customize when you're doing a third-person writable type thing. So pretty cool.
Yeah, totally.
All right, I'm going to hand it over to Bryant to cover a bunch of editor updates. Always exciting with editor.
So we have not been naming minor releases with editor, but if I were to name this one, this would definitely be the selection update version, because probably the most hype feature in this one is our selection improvements. We've totally overhauled our selection, how that works. You can do things you couldn't do before, like drag your selection. You could undo. That was real bad when you get in situations, you get your selection just right, and then you can't undo it. So big improvements to selection. In addition to kind of overhauling the entire thing, we've added trim actions, and we're going to show a couple demos of those in a second. But just trim the selection and removing the error. In addition to that, we also have a new mode of selection, which we're calling Magic Select, which I'll talk about in a second as well. So first up, we're just going to highlight some of the selection. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but this is pretty much just using the mouse to do everything here. I'm going to switch to some of the keyboard shortcuts in a second, which you can see the commands I'm using here. So in this case, I'm showing the undo, so Control Z here, where I could undo that. If you misclick, it's less impactful than it was before, where I was very frustrated many times myself when I misclicked. A lot of these keyboard shortcuts also work in brush mode, and so you can see me here using Shift and Control to basically get different combinations of adding and removing different brush selects. So very powerful. You can get selections just right. You can also tweak it. So in this case, I'm using Alt and just left right there to get the selection exactly where you want it. That's really powerful for making things like structures or carving out if you want it to look a certain way. I'm going to move on to the next one here. So much of the same on that one in terms of fine-tuning your selections. We're going to move over to the next one, which is our trim actions. So with trim actions, these are really much of the same of getting your selection exactly how you want. You can actually be lazier now. So in this case, I just made a random selection volume using marquee select over there. And with trim action, I first did it so there was a bounding box around that tree. And then the second action I did was remove air. So in this case, I'm just selecting the tree itself. So again, if I wanted to turn this into a structure, I can just click on those two things. I have the tree, I don't have the air, so if I wanted to turn that into the structure, I could paste it right next to itself without basically deleting blocks with air. So really powerful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then last thing I wanted to show here is our new mode. You can see the little eyedropper under selection modes here. This is Magic Select. And Magic Select kind of does what we did with that last tree, but it saves you a lot of steps. And so we actually have an algorithm that whatever you select, it will look up to see what blocks are connected. And so let's say you have a giant sphere floating in the air, you can select one of the bottom blocks on that, it'll do the same thing. So really powerful, again, for creating structures, or if you just wanted to delete specific things like those trees, you can use these selection modes. So really powerful.
That's awesome.
Next, we're going to just talk about additional features in this release that are not selection specific. So the first one, we added custom block support in Workbench. And so we got a lot of feedback that, hey, if you have custom blocks that have properties, when you go into Workbench, you couldn't actually toggle different properties or modify them without going into crosshair mode. You can actually do that in Workbench. So it's really helpful if you have blocks of the same type, do a giant selection, you can change all of those in one action now, even if they're custom blocks. So very powerful. Another one is we have a new preview visualizer. That's the first image on the top there. Any tool that uses just selection, kind of a selection modality such as extrude or smart fill, we are visualizing that. So you know exactly what the blocks are going to look like or what blocks will be impacted before you actually make that transaction. So really helpful to kind of communicate what we're doing there. Next is error state. So we also got the feedback that, hey, when the error was thrown in editor, you didn't really know because we'd log at the log panel. If you didn't have log panel open, sorry. We actually have this red box that pops up to just make it very apparent that, hey, an error occurred. So if your selection was too big and you're trying to fill, for example, that is a scenario where, hey, we can't do that. We're going to throw an error. You now know about that in a lot more obvious way. We also added game rules on export. So this was something that there's a lot of different game rules on export, and so we just added that, kind of made that a little bit more of a complete feature than we had in the past. And then lastly, this one I'm really excited about is we got a lot of feedback where editor is this interesting hybrid between Minecraft and a professional tool. And if you're not used to using professional tools and you're used to using Minecraft, things like movement and just the tools, it might feel a little bit overwhelming to you. And so what we actually added was a little step-by-step tutorial. We call it out-of-box experience, or UBI. And that allows new users to come on and actually understand some of the very basics within, I think if you went through it pretty fast, probably 30 seconds to a minute, to really understand the most important things before moving on. So really excited about that feature for new users that want to learn about editor. And if you haven't, because you may have been intimidated, definitely encourage you to check it out and go through that tutorial system. So that's it for editor.
All right.
That's awesome. I love how easy it is to get started with editor.
Oh, me too.
You just fire it up in the launcher.
Exactly.
You get it right going. It's pretty great. And also, if you're a big fan of the vibrant visuals features that are going out, editor is a great way to customize those and play with them as well. So definitely check out editor if you haven't. As always, you can find out even more by going to minecraft.net/creator. Where Mike updates a lot of our great material and updates our documentation as well to kind of give you more and more insight into how to build. But also feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for this channel, and you'll find out whenever we have new videos, either summarizing new releases or tutorials to give you even more information on how to continue your creator journey.
Or if you have feedback on other types of videos, like stunts that we can do, we're always open to suggestions as well. So please leave a comment in this video, and we'll take your feedback into account.
I'm down for a good stunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be doing those stunts from the tropics?
Okay, cool guy.
If we had enough UVs, I might do a stunt too.
Yeah. So please like and subscribe for more stunts. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.